Alright, well, I'm here today to teach you graphing inequalities, and the easiest way to go about it is understand the basics of what goes into it. The first thing you need to know, if you don't remember it from a previous chapter, is what slope-intercept form means. So when you're graphing inequality, you always want to get it down to a y equals mx plus b format, and that is called slope-intercept. It's called slope-intercept because the m represents the slope, which represents either how quickly or how slowly the line inclines or declines. So the higher the number, the quicker the incline or decline, the steeper. Um, the B is the first intercept when x is 0. So wherever it crosses that y line first is the intercept. So you always want to get it down to that format to make it easier to graph, to get it down there. So I made an example real quick here. 3x plus y is greater than 6. So the greater than sign also, to clarify, can substitute for the equals in the format. So what you first want to do is just practice moving the equation over. So you want to subtract the 3x on both sides, so minus 3x on one side. And so that transfers over to y is greater than negative 3x plus 6. Next, I'm going to go into how the symbols greater than or less than or greater than or equal to vary and what they mean in the equation. Alright, so the other basic beginning part of inequalities is memorizing this minor thing, and I'll explain it now and it will make sense later. I just find it's the easiest way to go about it. If you ever see a less than or greater than sign in your inequality, this means that the numbers on the line will not be included. And once again, this will make sense later. Just remember now that if there's no line under it, it's dashed. The way I remember it, as far as this goes, I'll go into a little bit later. Just a little quick trick I remembered from being a little bit younger. And also, the next symbol is a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to. And it's basically a less than or greater than sign with a line under it. And that means there's a solid line. This means the points on the line are also included in the solution. The way I remember it is there's a solid line under the less than or equal to or greater than or equal to sign. So I remember there's a solid under there, the line is solid. If you could remember little tricks like that, like I can, it's always helped me out a lot with memorization. Next, I'll start showing you some examples and how to graph. Alright, so I've drawn a couple examples here on what we need to do. So first of all, before we graph or anything, we need to get this down to y equals mx plus b format. First step is subtracting 6 on both sides. So that would be 2y is greater than 2x minus 6. Next step, we want to get that y by itself. Divide 2 on both sides. Remember, when you divide 2, you do it to both numerals on the other side. So that's going to turn into y is greater than x minus 3. And that's ready to graph. We'll go into that in a second. Next equation is where the tricky part comes into play. Just delete this part real quick. This is a trick that will definitely throw you off. This seems very easy and like it shouldn't take any time, and it's definitely a trick that you're going to have to memorize. So when you divide the negative 4 out, which I know you guys know how to do, divide it out of there to get it by itself, that turns into y. Actually, is not greater than anymore, it's less than. I'll explain that in a second. 2x plus 3. Whenever you divide or multiply a number out of the y in any inequality, you flip the sign. It's not something you're always going to understand. Oh, that's minus 3. It's not something you're always going to understand, and that's minus negative 2. Okay, my fault, but it's not something you're always going to understand. It's just something you have to accept. It changes the thing completely when you bring over a negative number and bring it into both sides. So when you're doing these problems, just remember, if you see a negative and you multiply or divide it, just remember to flip the signs. So next we'll go into the fun part, which I think is graphing. Thank you. Alright, so I'm now in this handy Mac graphing software. I will show you how to graph the equations we found earlier. The first one was y is greater than x minus 3. And looking at the Cartesian plane right now, we know that negative 3 is the intercept, right? So we want to go down 1, 2, 3, x being 0, 1, 2, 3, and the first point should be there. The absence of a number in front of the x means that it is going to be a slope of 1. So it's going to be up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. If you have trouble forgetting which one's positive and which one's negative in relation to the direction of the line, remember that if you were looking at a stock portfolio, you want it to look like it's going this way. It's a positive. If something's going like that, you probably don't want to invest. So when you graph that, it comes out to, after you graph a couple points, it comes out to this. Alright, so the next step is figuring out what the sign means, and in this case it's going to be greater than. And we have to figure out what's going to relate to. And remember, greater than is going to be dotted because it's not going to be included on this line. The solution is not on this line. Okay. Next step is the point check. And since the line is not on 0, 0, if it was, we couldn't use it. We just pick up any point in the graph, 0, 0 being the easiest. So we plug 0, 0, x being 0, right there, and y being 0. X minus 3 is negative 3. And y is going to be 0. So anywhere up here is going to be shaded. So if I go into the next one, you see there, it's not doing a very good job of looking dashed, but being dashed, but it's kind of, I'll imply it. So all this area is filled. Everywhere above the line that's blue right now is a solution. Let's get into the next one here. Clear it out. So the next one was the tricky one we went over. We flip the sign. It's y equals negative 2x minus 3. So we know once again that the intercept is going to be where x is 0 and where y is. So y is negative 3. So 1, 2, 3. And the slope's negative 2. So we want the slope going that way. The way I do it is I go, so right here I go left 2, 1, 2, or I go up 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. And that's going to turn out to be this sort of line. See, like it's like sort of a bad line to see if you're looking at a stock or population growth, whatever. Once again, we're going to figure out what the signs mean. In this case, it's less than or equal to. So we know that's going to be a solid. As a solid, that means that the line is going to be included in the equation, in the solution, I mean. Once again, we're going to do a point check. We're lucky again, 0, 0 is not on the line. We could use any point we want, just to clarify that. But I like to use 0, 0, and I think it's the best option. So put x into there, 0 into x, and 0 into y. 0 times negative 2 is 0. Minus 3 is negative 3. So y is going to be 0. Negative 3 is not greater than or equal to y. So that means that this part right here is not the solution. That means that the opposite is. So let's plug it in there. There it is. Everywhere, including the line in this case, is going to be the answer. All this blue right here is a solution to this equality. Alright, so I've gone way over time. I'm going to leave you guys with some practice problems, so be sure to pause the video and try these out. The graphing is the hardest part, and I'll leave you with the answers. Hope you learned something today.